Good evening, everyone. I'm Fox 11 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Powell here with an update on the storm that is going to hit the southern United States. This is directly related to the cold that we are going to see. We have an extreme cold warning for tomorrow night and Friday. It will probably be extended into Saturday because that's when the cold air is going to be with us. But I wanted to take you through something a little bit different. If you're looking for a forecast, if you're looking for, am I going to get freezing rain? Am I going to get snow? And you live in the southern United States, this is not for you. I'm going to explain why this is going to be such a tough storm for the southern U.S. And we're going to start with the map. Excuse my drawing, I'm not an artist. I do most of the things on computer and things are already built. But I basically drew a little map here of the southeastern United States. So the cold front comes through here as we head into tomorrow evening, here being Wisconsin. And then as we get into Friday, that front gets hung up a little on the Appalachian Mountains. By the way, these are the Appalachians, these are the Rockies. Didn't quite know how to draw in mountains. But the front gets down basically something like this. So it's down just beyond Texas into northern Louisiana. That's where the cold front gets to. So that's where we start running into problems, because there's a piece of jet stream energy that's coming over the Rocky Mountains. That gets caught up in the front. The front is an area that we call, it's a baroclinic zone. It's an area of weaker pressure. So that allows that area of low pressure to develop. And that low is gonna try to trace the front and run towards the eastern United States. So as the high pressure builds in and the low starts coming out of the Rockies, the front eventually gets down to, well, about mid-Mississippi, mid-Alabama, something like this. It's not exact. I'm obviously drawing on a whiteboard, so don't look for this to be like a professional thing that you're going to see on a normal weathercast. I'm going to try to explain this very quickly. First off, the cold air is diving in from the north. So it is very cold coming in from Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas. That cold air is pushing southward. Important to remember that the cold air is much more dense than the warm air. So the warm air ends up riding over the top of it, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But one of the tricks here is how it gets hung up on the southern end of the Appalachians, because as the high pressure comes east a little bit, it's going to try to push cold air down through the Piedmont region, through the eastern sections of North Carolina and South Carolina. The biggest problem with that is if it moves down towards Atlanta, and if it gets down south of Atlanta, if that low cold air, the below freezing air near the surface, then we could see some really significant icing. There are differences in the computer models. It's Wednesday evening. This storm is going to hit Saturday, Sunday. There are differences in the computer models on exactly where the heavy snow is going to be, exactly where they're going to get freezing rain. So that's a big part of the issue right now with the overall forecast. But the general setup is Arctic front getting down to the Gulf Coast, deep cold air filling in behind it, and then a little wave of low pressure comes off of the Rocky Mountains that will strengthen over Texas and then run out towards the eastern United States. Now I'm going to turn and show you why we end up with this freezing rain and snow event. This is a look at the atmosphere, how the atmosphere looks, how meteorologists look at it. It's basically called the skew T log P. That's the official name for it. But basically, this is going up in height. There is the freezing line coming at an angle because pressure decreases as you go up in height. So typically, when you get that low cold air coming in, right at the bottom portion of the sounding, closest to the ground, that gets colder because the cold air is moving in. But remember that we have really warm air in place and all that moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. And the cold air is shallow, so it noses in underneath the warm air. And what you end up with is this cold pocket near the ground, but you still have the warmer air here. This is all the warmer air sitting a few thousand feet off the ground. And temperatures are in the 30s, 40s, 50s in that region, and that tends to melt off the precipitation and end up changing it over to snow. So what happens is this air gets lifted. So air is getting lifted, and up here, these snowflakes here, but the snowflakes fall, and they fall and they get into that warmer air. So then the snowflakes melt. So now you have really cold, wet raindrops, and then it falls down to the ground. Well, the ground temperature maybe is 26, 24. That's where you run into big problems, because the depth of that cold air, if it's pretty shallow, which it looks like it will be with a lot of this Arctic air kind of nosing in underneath, that's going to give you freezing rain. If this warm layer is a little bit higher, that's going to be tough to draw that in. But let's just erase that a little bit. And we'll show you, say it's a really small layer of warm air and then it's much colder. Then you get sleet. Sleet is a little easier to deal with than freezing rain. Sleet is when you get little frozen pellets that they bounce on the ground, and it falls a lot like snow, and it accumulates a little more like snow than freezing rain does. Rain, freezing rain anyway, is just rain, and it's pouring rain, but the temperature might be 25 or 26 or 28 degrees. So then everything freezes into a sheet of ice. This is especially problematic for roads and bridges, because obviously you have sheet ice on everything and nobody can drive anywhere. But it's also very problematic for air travel, for power infrastructure, and for trees. A lot of these big ice storms that we get, the ice starts out as snowflakes, melts in that big warm layer, and this falls as cold raindrops into air that's 25 degrees, then it just freezes on everything. So you end up with a layer, a cake of ice on top of power lines, on top of trees, and it knocks trees down. So if we go a little further over the side here, I'll explain